Hi, I'm Chris Downs, a writer for Microsoft Access. In addition to views like Datasheet View and Form View, Access provides pivot table and pivot chart views to help you summarize and visualize your data. This is a query that I've already built pivot views for. Once you configure the pivot views, you can switch back and forth between them, just like Datasheet View and Form View for forms. In fact, you can set it up so that a pivot view is the default view for an object, and I'll show you how to do that later. You can create pivot views for tables, queries, and forms. With forms, the two pivot views are not enabled by default, so to enable them, you need to switch to Design View, and then set the Allow Pivot Chart View and Allow Pivot Table View properties to Yes. Now I can select the pivot views for this form. There are a few things to remember about data sources. When you create a pivot view for a form, the view can only display data from that form's record source. If you create a pivot view for a table, the view can only display data from that table. Building pivot views on queries provides you with the most flexibility because queries themselves are very flexible. So I'll start by creating a new query and adding the sales amounts and salespersons tables to the query. I'll add the salesperson, date, and amount fields to the query. I'll switch to Datasheet View, and there's the data I want to look at, but it's just in rows and columns, and it's not very helpful in this form. So I'll switch to Pivot Table View. You'll notice that there's nothing here. You have to build your view the first time that you use it. Once you save the object, the view will stay as you created it. If the field list is not displayed, you might need to toggle the Field List button to make it display. I want to summarize sales by salesperson, so I'll make that the row field by dragging it from the field list to where it says Drop Row Fields Here. You can have more than one row field. I also want to summarize sales by date, so I'll make that the column field. An alternative way to add fields to the view is to select them in the field list and then use this drop-down list to select which area to add it to. Then click the Add To button. The thing I want to summarize, of course, is the amount. So I'll drag that to the main body of the chart where it says Drop Totals or Detail Fields Here. So here's the initial layout showing the details for each salesperson by date. Note that I can't edit the data in this view. Pivot views are read-only. So what I really want are totals for each person and date, but not the details. So I'll click one of these detail cells, click Auto Calc, and then click Sum. Access calculates subtotals and grand totals for each row and column. It's starting to get a little cluttered with all the details and the totals, so I'll hide the details. First I'll click the Detail field, which will select all the columns, and then I click Hide Details. That's more like what I want to see. The two pivot views for an object are always linked, so if I switch to Pivot Chart View, you can see that the data is already being displayed here. However, it's not really very readable in this form. It's a bar chart with the salespeople along the bottom, and I would rather have a line chart with the dates along the bottom. So I click Switch Row Column, which puts the dates along the bottom of the chart. Then I click Change Chart Type, and then try out some of the chart types. I think I like this 3D version best. Charts aren't very helpful without legends, so I'll click Legend to display it. I'm pretty satisfied with this chart, so I'll make it look a little cleaner by hiding the drop zones. And I can make other formatting changes, such as getting rid of the gray background behind the chart. In the chart properties, I just clear the fill color from each panel in the background. I'll save this query as Sales Pivot and review the different views again. I want to use this pivot chart view on a form, but I want to make sure that the chart is the default view and not the query datasheet. So I'll switch to Design View of the query. I'll open the property sheet and click the query so that the property sheet is showing query properties. I'll set the default view property to Pivot Chart, and this way anytime I open the query or use it on a form or report, it will display the chart instead of the datasheet. I'll save and close the query and create a new form, and then just drag the query object to the form. And I'll save this new form as Sales Pivot. I've already built a navigation form for this database, and it contains a simple form and a report. We have another video about building a navigation form if you want to learn how. I'll add my new form to this navigation form by switching to Layout View and then dragging the form to the Add New tab. I'll edit the label on the tab, switch back to Form View, and now my new pivot chart is easy to view. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll check out our other articles and videos on Office.com.